At Sugar Punch, we're pretty big on anime, video games, and anime video games, so it might come as a surprise to some of you that before I had anime, I grew up on DC Comics. For a while, I've been quietly hoping for a good DC fighting game to come out, and it came in the form of Injustice: Gods Among Us. While I enjoyed my time with the game, I always took issue with the game's animation. Netherrealm has never been known for having great animators, and even their more recent games are plagued with animation issues that is frankly unacceptable for a developer of their caliber. But that rant will come when I finally decide I'm angry enough to talk about Mortal Kombat X. In the meantime, I wanted to give Injustice 2 a shot to see if NRS has learned anything from their past mistakes. The last two Netherrealm games I played were Mortal Kombat 9 and Injustice 1. Both were solid steps towards Netherrealm's efforts towards making real fighting games, and not this garbage. While the games had solid systems and mechanics, I always felt that they could always be fine-tuned in terms of playability, specifically the way that the game handles inputs and cancels. In Injustice 1, cancel windows were very strict, and it often felt like I had to input moves before they even came out, even while playing offline. I can say at the very least that Injustice 2 seems to have wider cancel windows, and it's easier to hit confirm into special moves. Players of Capcom fighters like Street Fighter may have to adapt to how movement feels. Character movement can sometimes feel stiff with how much recovery frames on dashes and backdashes there are, which will become frustrating quickly because of how wide the stages are, and it is sometimes a challenge to catch up to an opponent who is simply running away. The other issue I had with Injustice 1 was the use of the heroic trait button. Each character has a unique mechanic mapped to the trait button that provides a unique move or benefit, similar to BlazBlue's drive mechanic. However, most traits were just a buff that acted as a cancel, some limited use ability that has a long cooldown, or an ability that was either useless or provided no tactical options to the character. Compare this to BlazBlue's drive button, where it is always active and forms an integral part of a character's playstyle. Of the characters in the beta, the newcomers Supergirl and Atrocitus seem to have much better designed traits. Supergirl's trait gives her a limited stock of heat vision beams that she can fire in various angles, which feels like a much more frequent and active ability that I have access to. Atrocitus can call in Dexstar, a house cat that is truly the embodiment of rage, who provides Atrocitus with covering fire or a shield for a short amount of time. This gives Atrocitus something of an assist function, giving him unique options for approaching and covering his offense. There's less to say at this point in time because this is an early beta and things could easily change months before the game's final release, but with what we have, the game feels pretty good in my hands. Off camera, I've ranted about Netherrealm's animation more times than I can even count. Before I start, let me say that not all of the animation is bad. In fact, the cinematic and cutscene animation is actually fantastic, especially with their more sophisticated facial motions. The animation begins to suffer when it comes to the actual game animation. Animating for cinematics is actually wildly different than animating for a video game. In cinematics, you can time your animations to have as much anticipation, build-up, and follow-through as you want as long as it fits the shot. But in a video game, your animations need to come out fast and snappy in order to feel responsive to the player. This often means sacrificing keyframes in order to deliver the intended animation while still maintaining the feeling of velocity and impact. Games like Street Fighter do this by emphasizing key poses. Having at least a starting pose and an end pose is good enough to convey motion in a short amount of frames, because the human mind has the remarkable ability to fill in the blanks by itself. Netherrealm animations, on the other hand, attempt to awkwardly pace their animation so that they come out smoothly, but lacking any feeling of velocity or impact because the smoothed out animations aren't emphasizing the build-up or the snap of the release. Going in between Injustice 1 and Injustice 2, the battle animations have gotten better in terms of choreography, but still lack the dynamic timing that makes strikes feel snappier. A few of the really bad animations in Injustice 1 have been redone in Injustice 2, for the better, though it's clear that Netherrealm's battle animators still haven't quite gotten the grasp of animating for a fighting game. I think Atrocitus suffers the most from bad animations, as Netherrealm has historically had problems animating large characters between Injustice 1 and MKX. A lot of Atrocitus' moves look like he's only flailing his arms and not attacking with his entire weight, and with a lot of these moves he's not even bending his elbows. With fight animation, all motion comes from the core of the body. The muscles at your core move the muscles up to the collarbone, which move the arms, and etc, etc. If there's no core motion, it just looks like the arm is slapping about with no real power behind it. This is especially important for big characters because you need a lot of emphasis to really sell the power behind their hits in a limited amount of frames. Take a look at the Hulk's animations from Capcom's early Marvel games. Even though these attacks are coming out in relatively fewer frames, observe how the Hulk is leading with his body before his attacks come out. You can really feel that he's throwing all of his weight behind these moves, and the payoff is excellent. Admittedly, every character in Injustice would benefit from this treatment, but Atrocitus needs it badly. I'll just start reading off a list of nitpicks in no particular order. This version of the game is using a more advanced shader than when the game was first revealed, which is great because it's done wonders for Supergirl's face. However, someone needs to do something about her win pose because the shader fix did not do this pose any favors. Why does this still happen when a character is KO'd? This looks stupid. No technical breakdown, it looks stupid. Netherrealm, you have like $1 billion to make this game. Either start the post-KO animation as the character rises from the floor, or don't do it at all. This fall-down, stand-up, tumble-over thing is stupid, and I can't believe it even made it into the first game. The animation on capes is really stiff. Though animation is an odd word to use since the capes are controlled by dynamics, but these capes feel like they're made of plastic and not made of cloth, which is a big problem in a game where lots of characters wear capes. I'm more forgiving of this one though because we know what happens when dynamic objects in a fighting game get out of hand. Something about the sound design really bugs me. I'm no audio expert, but it sounds like there's way too much bass. It seems like sounds will just blow out and crackle up whenever things get really intense, like the explosion of the missiles in Batman Super. Speaking of sound, the sound effects on hits and blocks are really subdued. Not only do they suffer from the bass overload, but they just don't feel heavy or impactful at all. There's barely any difference between the sound of an attack landing or an attack being blocked, which doesn't help because the hit spark for a hit or a block is also extremely similar. The UI, music, and announcer are the least exciting aspects of the entire game. Modern fighting games have shown us what an exciting graphic design could look like, and Injustice chose to keep it as boring and stale as possible, especially with the half-asleep announcer.
Supergirl, Atrocitus, begin. Supergirl wins.
The stage music barely has any presence, which is a shame because the action of the game can get really exciting at times, and a good soundtrack can elevate this excitement to new levels of hype. I get that they're going for a more cinematic feel like a movie, but why in the world would you want to emulate the feel of the DC movies? Why does this happen on the Gotham City stage? Like, yeah, I know, it's Gotham City, it's supposed to be gloomy and dreadful, but this looks awful! Please, turn the lights back on! But before it seems like I'm tearing this game apart, I'll give some positive nitpicks as well. The voice acting and facial animation is excellent. Securing the actors of the original DC animated cartoons was a great choice in Injustice 1, and carrying over to Injustice 2 just makes it even better. Kevin Conroy sounds especially at home as Batman.
I need to know what you can do.
Speaking of which, I'm glad Injustice 2 borrowed the MKX model of conversational character intros. I absolutely love unique character dialogue, and part of what I love about superhero action in the first place is heroic banter.
Come on, I'm you! Well, I'm not sharing my room. Fine, loser gets the couch.
Speaking of heroic banter, the new Clash animation is fantastic. It also seems like you've traded out the large set-piece win poses of Injustice 1 for the dynamic slow-mo play-of-the-game action shot. This is a good change. Batman's stance is better. I really hated his old stance. This new stance is much more fitting. Stage transitions actually deal damage now. They used to scale really badly in Injustice 1, so I'm glad to actually be rewarded for setting up a clever stage transition combo. At the end of the day, I still feel like I'm on the fence about Injustice 2. I had a lot of fun playing, and I feel like there's a lot to delve into because of the character customization and loot system. The more lenient controls made it easier for me to get into the hang of Injustice 2 than it did for me to learn Injustice 1, and the new characters show marked improvements in Netherrealm's animation, but they haven't quite hit the mark just yet. I'm not a pro player, so I buy a lot of fighting games just for their art and production, and at the end of the day, I still have a lot of gripes about the art of Injustice. Maybe if I happen to have a lot of extra cash on hand, I'll pick it up, and god damn it, there's a deluxe digital edition with a Power Girl skin, and I just want to play as a good-looking Power Girl, and I'm not made of money, god damn it! And that ends my impressions with the Injustice 2 beta. If anyone else has played the beta, or if anyone has any questions about the game, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Sugar Punch for more content that will definitely not be about Injustice. I'm A.B.I., and I'll just be here in the corner hoping for less Batman and more lanterns.